Hello, language travellers. You're listening to Lilia from Lilia's Sunday podcast. I'm currently sitting on a little bench in a gazebo next to my summer house, and the nature around is fascinating. Well, in fact, it's raining, as you may hear, and I hope I can bring a bit of that summer rain to your earphones. I've actually decided to record this episode in the early morning, so this is the first thing that I'm about to do today, because I generally feel a bit more productive in the morning. I don't think that being a lark or a so-called owl may change your life, and if you have been an owl for your whole life and now you have decided to requalify and become a lark, that might actually impact on your whole life. I don't think it comes down to being an owl or a lark, but generally I prefer being an owl. I prefer just getting up early in the morning and doing something, and that's when I feel most productive. So I have decided to record a new episode after a long break. I filled with so many things, including teaching English, working on my own level of English, developing as an English language teacher and learning about and mastering some other skills like photography, fantasy modelling, human psychology and creative writing. I've continued running my cozy blog where I've been sharing bits of my teaching experience and helping other teachers convert each of their lessons into a valuable memory for their students. So I think that you can just turn your lessons into an interesting experience while teaching relevant language through interesting activities that learners enjoy based on our individuality and personal ways of learning. So I've met so many new learners around the world who I've been teaching on Skype. And if you guys are listening to this episode of Lilia's Sunday podcast right now, I'd like to say that I can't emphasise enough how grateful I am to you for allowing me to find out more about you and your learning experiences. I really appreciate the trust you have been constantly putting in me. So, in fact, so many of you have been requesting to share with you my English learning experience, so I just can't help making this little recording. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you a chain of methods I used subconsciously to master my level of English. You don't tend to analyse a lot when you're a teenager, do you? So all you do is just you do things because someone has told you that they're okay to do. So just carry on with the things. You just start doing things. You can't rationalise. You can't just think rationally what works and what doesn't. You just start doing things, and I used to do so many things without thinking when I was a teenager in terms of learning English. And then it turned out that I was actually doing the right thing. So today I just want to share some of those things with you. And just starting out, but just giving you a little taste of that personal history. I was born Ukrainian in the middle of 90s, so I didn't have much opportunity to expose myself to any natural, authentic English at that time. Most courses our school used were voiced over by Russian and Ukrainian speakers who spoke English with a heavy Russian and Ukrainian accents, so it was rather difficult to listen to anything more or less authentic to drop your accent in the very beginning. So my learning journey started when I was about 4. My mum took me to a language tutor who was Ukrainian, and she was fantastic. I think thanks to that woman who would teach me when I was like 4 or 5, thanks to that lady who rented a flat, just in the neighbourhood, I started feeling that the English language is something I really enjoy, and a group of other kids and I found ourselves in a little flat in our neighbourhood where we would learn in a playful manner through games and other types of exciting engagement and various activities. I remember the teacher granting us colourful markers and stickers every time we guessed the right word. I got so interested in the English language that I just couldn't stop collecting all markers and all stickers and all postcards, leaving the rest of the group dissatisfied and angry with me. So my competitiveness was growing and I kept collecting the markers, stickers, postcards. My teaches hamsters and, gerbils and guinea pigs and everything my teacher would have and be willing to give away as an incentive. So I was growing engaged, and when I went to school, I didn't study English since the very first year. But I just had that little insight into English, and my English lessons officially started when I went to secondary school, and there I realised that I knew nothing about English. I didn't understand why students said ran instead of run when they were describing a past experience, so I thought it was a question of pronunciation. A bit later I learnt more about the grammar of the English language, plus I developed a massive interest for the English language, which I believe has been propelling me to the level where I'm now. So I've been doing everything driven by this interest. And even at school, when I went to the secondary school, and then when I was doing my 10th and 11th year at school, while other kids were smoking and partying and trying out the alcohol, and other teenagers, I'd play the biggest nerd in the world and study grammar and vocabulary units at home at my desk, saying no to social life. So that's where my introspective personality has been helping me a lot. Don't just get me wrong, I'm not saying that profound learning is only available for introverted learners. I'm just saying that lots of revision and constant repetition was helping me greatly in the early stages. I was the kind of person who was somehow interested in the language for the sake of language. I didn't have many people to talk to in English, so I chose to talk to myself in the balcony, walking back and forth, imagining I was giving a lecture or something. So I'd record new words and phrases in a vocabulary notebook and made myself use them on purpose. I created imaginary scenarios in my head where I had to use those phrases. So I forced myself to use those phrases. And later on, when after vigorous vows I won't watch any porn, my parents got me my first computer. I discovered YouTube, and that was the time when YouTube blogging was just in its cradle. So many British bloggers were turning up and coming up talking about their lives, and I was literally obsessed with the opportunity to listen to authentic everyday English without having to go anywhere. And I got basically hooked, and I started watching some of those daily vlogs, picking up some everyday vocabulary. That was the point when I realised that I knew so many words. When it came to, just when it comes to abstract vocabulary, the language of reciprocal love, just love and hate and things like that. But I didn't really know what to call the simpler things like glosses, sunnies, just like a cupboard, things like that. So those words were so interesting for me to learn at that point. So that was really interesting. So I started watching some of those daily vlogs, and I started picking up some everyday vocabulary naturally. I chose a few bloggers I loved most, those being Fleur de Force and Zoella. I'll leave some links under the episode so you can go and check them out too. I fell head over heels in love with British English, so I decided I want to master it on purpose. So it's been mainly about self-studying and speaking out. I used to repeat a lot after the bloggers I have mentioned. There was a kind of drill. I didn't go to any course, I didn't go to any school, I didn't do any course. And the only kind of drill I could do was the kind of drill I was doing myself. So I got so excited that at some point I realised I could understand English to a great extent, all through that constant listening that I was doing. So I'm carrying on with my English workouts every day. This is something that I can't just, ignore. Every day I just tend to do a little bit of that English listening. I tend to listen about things that I like. I tend to expand my vocabulary, and although I may sometimes feel envious because when I just look at my learners, when I look at my students, I look at other learners, I think, oh my God, they have such a long way to go. So they have so many things to discover in terms of their English learning yet. And I'm just, it's getting a bit difficult as your language is becoming better to pick up new things. But in terms of the language, it's great because a language is a system which is constantly growing, and it's fantastic that you can just work on your English all the time and there is no end to it. So for a constant learner, that is a virtue, that is a massive, massive advantage. So here are the 3 things I want you to learn from this video. First, studying, burying yourself in the books doesn't help much. Speaking and basically tasting the language helps a lot. So even if you don't have anyone to speak English to, make sure you still speak it in your balcony, in the toilet, in the garage, in the garden, anywhere where no one can hear you so you can feel safe. Just say something. You can start by reading out the vocabulary units or the grammar from the units you have covered. Just speak the language. I cannot emphasize it enough. Don't just cram in the grammar. Don't do the exercises simply. Exercises are important, yeah, so just do some exercises, try to, pimp your English grammar, but also speak. No matter whether you're speaking to a neighbour or to the wall or to your cat or to your dog or to a gerbil. You have to try it. Speak it and you'll get better with time. One thing I've been hearing constantly all the time is learners saying, I have no one I can speak English to and I just cannot speak. I just want to do all of that vocabulary news series and then I'll grow up in terms of my English and I'll get to the point when I'll be able to speak English. No, it starts now. Start it right now. After listening to this podcast, you may even just put it on pause now. I'll forgive you. Just start speaking right now. Start speaking right now. If you cannot start speaking on your own, start repeating things after other speakers who are good speakers of English, who are educated speakers of English. And here is thing number 2. Listen to native speakers. I'm a bit afraid to sound biased or judgmental here because in today's world, I believe educated native English speakers working for the BBC or doing some news reports or filming respectful blogs are still the best models so we learners can copy. Don't be afraid to model yourself on a speaker that fascinates you. It's fine. Trying to speak like native speaker is not about losing your own identity. And this is not about losing your first language accent. We're not talking pronunciation here. It's more about working out the pattern of the language you're learning and asking yourself why the speaker is saying something in this and that particular way. Why have they chosen to say this phrase over that phrase? Why have they chosen to use this particular word over that particular synonym of that word? So it is very interesting. So questioning yourself, why are they saying it like this? It's more about learning to switch into the English way of thinking rather than getting rid of your own identity. You don't have to become Irish or English or Australian or American. You still be you, but sticking to the norms and rules of the so-called standard understandable, intelligible English, making sure people will understand you all around the world, no matter where all of us come from. Isn't it exciting? Isn't it the reason why we're learning English in the first place? And here is thing number 3. Choose to do something you like in English. I chose YouTube blogs and fashion and photography because I'm hugely interested in those things. That wasn't random. So I'm not a fan of physics, and I'm not a fan of just certain things. So feel free to choose an interest you like and stick to it and learn about it in English. You may choose robots, video games, technology, science, the world around us, and the list goes on and on. Listening to something you like provides us with huge motivation to carry on. So that's where that multitasking, that notorious multitasking comes in its whole beauty. Choose something you like and learn about it in English. You could do an online course to master a skill you like in English. Isn't it great? So those were the 3 things I want you to focus on today if you want to master your English. I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm not saying that I'm an expert when it comes to English or to the English grammar or to English accents. I'm not pretending that I'm a super duper expert on English accents. But those are the 3 things I've been doing constantly for my whole life to keep my English up at this level. And this podcast, I've named Lilia's English Podcast, is wholly devoted to tips and tricks I've used to master my English. And I know for a fact work to speak English both accurately and fluently. You can check all 40-something episodes of it for free on lilia.nov.kardenas.com. I've also posted some episodes here on YouTube so you can listen to them as well. You can also find a link to my teaching blog down below. I share some knowledge for learners of English there as well, so make sure you check it out. So there we go. I hope you have found the tips I've shared in this episode useful. I think I'm going to go now and read a bit of my favourite fantasy saga now. So thank you so much for listening to this. I'm waiting for your comments and subscriptions here and on my blog. Feel free to send in your questions and comments. So what would you like me to talk about in my next episodes of Lilia Sunday podcast? Feel free to leave a comment down below and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll talk to you soon. Love, Lilia from Lilia Sunday Podcast.